18th, 2023 regular meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. It's being held at Harwich Town Hall in the Don B. Griffin Room, 732 Main Street. And this is the call to order. Any taping notifications as far as live taping, please inform the chair. It's required by the town. Anyway, moving on. Welcome guests. Is there any public comments before we begin?
Are we recording?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay.
We are now. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, moving on. Okay, can I get an approval of the CPC minutes for March 9th, 2023 and March 30th, 2023? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the CPC meeting minutes of March 9th, 2023 and March 30th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
I was not here for the March 9th meeting, so I would be abstaining from that vote. But
Oh, shall I amend
No,
my
no, we
motion
can.
to
So
separate
the March 9th meeting you're abstaining from?
yes.
We got that logged in? Okay, there's a motion, seconded, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're done. Got it. New business, CPC funding open project status reports. We'll start with the Recreation Director. Would you please go to the mic and identify yourself?
Over here or the table?
It's wherever you will feel comfortable, Eric.
Why stand when you can sit?
All right.
Hi, I'm Eric Beebe, Recreation Director. I will start with the first article on the list, which is the 2019 Article 43, Sand Pond Restroom Replacement. This one, we're simply just waiting for the extra money to go through town meeting this year. The original request was 125, which was granted by CPC in town meeting. And by the time an RFP went through with the raise of prices, we needed more money, so we're just waiting for the final vote at town meeting. But we're going to be ready to go right away. We have pretty much template RFPs from all the other restrooms we've done in town at the beaches. It's going to be the same kind of thing, precast concrete restroom. So once we get that money and we know we have that money after May or July 1, we'll be moving forward.
Okay. Is there any question from any member of the board? Hearing on, none, moving on.
Next is the 2020 Article number 36, which is the Brooksfield fencing. This one is being done right now, and I am told it will be done by the end of the day tomorrow. So this will be completed. We are going to be using all the money, so there won't be any return on this one. And it's coming out great. It was Rad Sports that got the bid through the RFP process, and we're happy with the work they're doing. I think that's it.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board. Any questions from any of the board members? Hearing none, moving on.
Next is 2021 Article 29, Senior Memorial Fencing Project. Unfortunately, we put this one out to bid, and it came in way over the allotted funds for this project. So we're kind of considering our options right now. We are aware we can't do repairs or maintenance with the money. It was for a full replacement. So the Rec Commission is going to make a decision on this at their next meeting, which is the fourth Tuesday of the month, whatever that is. So we'll either be coming back for more to get this project completed or returning the money in the interim. But that's what the commission and I will decide in a couple weeks.
Okay, open it up to the board. Any board member have a question? Kathy?
Kathy can go first.
Are the bids more because of the timing, because it's a year and a half later?
Well, I think that's part of it. It's also part of the cost of things has gone through the roof, especially metal. We saw the same thing for Brooks. Luckily, we had enough in there for Brooks. Brooks is a much bigger project, so we budgeted more. We just fitted in, just for an example, we had an original quote from a reliable fencing company we've used before for Brooks Field, the same exact project we're doing now for $41,000. And we're paying $72,000 and change now. And that's just a year's difference on the cost of the metal, the mesh fencing, the metal within that. It's not the labor or anything like that. It's all the materials that's gone through the roof.
Oh, said Kathy. Mary?
She hit my question.
Okay, anybody else from the board? Hearing none, moving on.
The last one here is last year's article number 36, which was the pickle basketball project at Brooks Park. We are moving forward with this. We're currently trying to find engineering companies to put together the design for the plan. We've contacted about 8 to 10 engineer companies right now to get our 3 quotes, to get the design put together. The plan was to get the design now, put it out to RFP as soon as we have that design, and then get it out to bid this summer for construction in the fall. And that's what we're looking at. We are having some trouble finding an engineering firm that's not too busy for the project at the moment, but we'll find somebody.
Okay, open it up to the board. Any questions, board members? Hearing none.
All right,
Thank you very much, sir, for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
thanks a lot.
Okay, next, Town of Harwich, Brooks Academy Museum. Dave Spitz, Chair. David, you have the floor. And the light.
I only have things electronically. My printer doesn't seem to be working at the moment. So I hope you all have this. It's very hard to get any project done these days because of costs, labor costs and material costs. I thought we were very lucky in September when, as opposed to the spring when we got 1 bid, we got 4 bids. One of them came in just under 1.2 million, which was just beneath our ceiling. And the others all came in quite a bit higher, including one that was twice that cost. So I recommended to the Board of Selectmen that we go forward with the project, which we did, rather than what Eric wisely did on his first project tonight, which was wait to get more money at town meeting. If so, I will tell town meeting or anybody else who asks that the cost then probably would have been even higher. I think we got a very good price, and I think we got a known contractor who had already worked on the library. So I continue to be pleased with the work that this contractor has done, but there have been delays, and the biggest issue has been the wall that did not have a foundation that we did not expect. We were told, if any of you saw the article in the paper today, that that would cost $200,000 to fix. We balked at that. The structural engineer came up with another solution that cost $61,000. However, to even cover the $61,000, we don't have enough money until town meeting. That's one, but not only, that's one of the reasons that things are currently not moving very fast. So anybody who drives by every day will continue to see a hole in the ground for at least another month, I would say. As far as the CPC part of it, we were going to use just about all the funds. Now we're over budget. We need all of the CPC funds from the 2 existing articles, plus, and I did do a whole bunch of questioning about 3 or 4 weeks ago to see what our options were. But the town administrator is proposing to use a sinking fund from sale of land that's available, if approved by voters, to be used immediately. Doesn't even have to wait till July 1st. That's a wonderful benefit for getting us back on track. So that's my quick summary. I hope some of you have gotten a chance to see the article today in the Chronicle. And we will be using all of the money on these 2 articles, and we should be done at this point. We were supposed to be done right around now. I'm hoping to be done by June 30th. That's my report.
Thank you, David. I'm going to open it up to the board. We'll start with Mary?
So just a question, David, the 61,000, is that just a free cash?
No. Article 47, I think it is the supplemental funding,
Okay,
and that's a total of $450,000.
all right.
I think we need $150,000 adding up the wall, the rotted sills, the concrete ramp that nobody knew about, and anything else. And there may be other costs. The other thing we found out is that there has been interior wall damage. It was already existing, but it's gotten worse. So that's also, I'm believing, able to be handled under this supplemental article. The boiler died during the course of this project, so so we got a lot going on, folks.
Definitely raining. Anybody else from the board?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Thank you.
next.
Amy.
Assuming that's me.
It is you, Amy. Please identify yourself for the town.
Amy Usowski, Conservation Administrator. Sorry that these were a little bit late. I did send them electronically, and I have copies for you here.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome. And I'll give you the remainder.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for having me here this evening to talk about our two outstanding projects that we have funding available for. You want me to talk about the 2018 one first? Sure, so 2018, Article 57, Public Access of the Hinkley Pond Remediation and Public Access Project. $75,000 available of the $650 total for the project. Because this has been such a really long time, I'd really like to just take a minute and explain kind of why something from 2018 is still in front of you. For those of you, I think most of you were here, but still. So in 2018, permitted the Hinkley Pond remediation. The actual in-water remediation with alum happened and went very well. As far as we are aware, how this information that we've been provided in the studies. The landside project has been a very difficult thing to kick off. In 2018, 2019 was around the time when we lost our surveyor and engineer. They had started the work and not continued with the work. And since then, we did a little bit, as much as we could in-house, and it took quite a while to be able to procure an outside engineering company. We only had one bid, and that was John O'Reilly and Associates, which you have the plan for here. I think they did a phenomenal job. They took into account the rudimentary sketches that myself and other members of community development and the town put together. This has yet to go in front of conservation because right now our stumbling block is going to the state. If you see, going through the plan, the center line running north and south, that's the center line of the state property. These dotted lines on either side are the outsides of the state property. So as you can see, the flat top, where the park would be, is really all within Mass DCR property. The staircase down the slope to the pond and is on a town piece of property. So I reached out and I got in touch with our local representative from DCR over at Nickerson, Eric, and he was kind enough to point me in the direction of the higher-ups in DCR. It has taken a long time to get a hold of them. I've been pretty relentless, but I am happy to say it's, as of today, I have a meeting with them next week.
Yay.
So I want you to know it's not for lack of trying, because it's been, when I see 2018, I'm embarrassed by the fact that it's been since 2018 that this project's been on the docket. So.
Can you identify what some of this stuff is, though?
Sure, of course. So on the plan, again, this has not been reviewed by the Conservation Commission, the selectmen, this is for you to see, to prove that we've done some work here. There's currently, up by Pleasant Lake Avenue, there's a couple of boulders, and those are the circles up there, and those are there now. We have a proposed split rail fence around the perimeter. We're proposing to remove all of that old asphalt that's currently taking up the entirety of that and make it pervious. Either wood chips or gravel.
I just said, wow.
Yeah.
That's-
Part of the reason behind doing that, it's a bit of a mess, the asphalt there, and it's causing quite a lot of erosion down the side slopes right into Hinkley Pond. So by taking up that that pavement, and I mean it looks big, but it's only like 60 feet wide by, I don't even know. It's a small area up here. The only portion that would be concrete or paved is the ADA access, which is a pathway that comes from the bike trail, cutting across the property to a viewing platform at the top of the stairs to the pond. The stairs themselves, due to the nature of the slope, it's not going to be able to be ADA accessible, but at least there'll be a viewing platform at the top of the stairs so that people can enjoy the beautiful view. And then there's a few picnic tables there. Sorry, the picnic tables are on the south end, kind of close to the bioretention swale, which will help capture further runoff from getting into the pond. And the 3 blocks that you see on the north side are planter boxes, provide a little bit of screening from the road. My idea is to do what we did over at the community gardens and do native wildflower seed mix. It's very hardy, drought tolerant, good for our bugs, and low maintenance. And then we have the larger square in the middle here is a proposed 8x10 covered bike kiosk. So we want to encourage people to stop, enjoy this beautiful vantage point, and a key reason why I feel that this whole project was submitted was palatable for the Hinkley Pond remediation was to improve the public access to the pond. And we don't have a lot of places to have this access, so this is the place where we can do that. So the goal is to improve stormwater runoff, improve access, improve the view shed. Mother Nature did me a big favor this year and took down about 4 of the trees that I had slated for removal that were dead. One of them about this wide. But so I'm optimistic that we are moving again in this, and I hope to have more of an update. I really won't know until after I talk to the state about the path, but I couldn't talk to the state until we had a site plan. So we have spent only $4,000 thus far for this. But the agreement with that engineer is that he will represent at 1 to 2 public meetings as well. We're planning on doing permitting in-house. Okay? So more to come on that one. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on that one.
All right, I'll open it up to the board. Mary?
I would just say that if, depending on how your meeting goes, that we should be reaching out to our state reps and our state senators, because they should be hopefully providing us with some support to DCR. And I think we can do that. You can do that through administration and the Board of Selectmen as well, and have them make phone calls, because typically that's how things get done,
Yeah,
you know?
I gotcha.
Elizabeth?
No, or call me at the county. I'll see what I can do, you know? So, because no, you should not have to wait for 3 years, for 4 years, 5 years for an appointment.
Well, I will say that the DCR hasn't, it's been several months, but, because I got this plan in October, November, so as soon as I got it, I started contacting them, so it's been 5 months.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. John?
Looks good. Thank you, Amy.
Robert?
Are you probably not gonna have enough money to finish the project? Just seeing what it costs to build those,
Well,
the stairs and all that alone could probably eat the money,
I hope that the majority is gonna be materials.
right?
There's a lot of the work that we can do in-house.
Okay,
So I'm not saying I need more yet, because I'm not sure yet, but we're hoping to do the majority of the work in-house.
thank you.
Kathy?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that we kind of have like a Plan B in the event that, you know, you are running short of funds, which you indicated you may. And that something would be maybe taken off this list versus us stalling the project and waiting for another funding cycle.
Yep.
So, for example, I don't necessarily think we need a covered bike kiosk. I mean, if they're riding their bikes, it's sunny. If it's not, then they probably aren't riding. So, I mean, I think that that's something we could take off the list
I
if we're
agree
looking
with
for
you.
funding, rather than waiting for another funding cycle.
That's a good point. I agree with you.
Anything else on this article?
Thank you. My second one is from 2020, Article number 31. It's restoration and rehabilitation of town-owned conservation lands in the amount of $20,000. We have $14,033 remaining. Thus far, the majority of the funds have been used to, spent on heavy-duty post and rail fencing in the Bell's Neck Conservation Area and the Robbins Pond Conservation Area. This is more than your split rail fence. These are 6x6 posts and beefy rails, and they're not as easily damaged by people or vehicles. So they have been somewhat more effective than having nothing, and more effective than plain split rail in keeping activities that we don't want to be happening in our conservation areas and sensitive areas out. I have recently, it didn't come up in this total because I just purchased it, but I recently spent another $2,000 worth for fencing. That only buys me about 200 feet of fencing. It's not, yeah, it's not a lot. It's all lumber, and we do, so the DPW, and I'll give them a shout out because they've been amazing. They've done the majority of this installation, because unlike simple post and rail split rail fencing where I can put it in with a post hole digger, you cannot do that with this fencing. Okay, we also used some funds to purchase 4 trail cameras to help with enforcement of our lands, where we routinely have vandalizing and dumping. So I've been using them. We put them up in our routine places where we get dumping and vandalism, and they do something somewhere else. So,
Buy more cameras.
but we have purchased those, and that's all the ones I plan on purchasing at this time. The reason you have 14,000 left is a potential big ticket item that we're waiting on, is to see if the Conservation Commission, if the town wants to do gates at any of our conservation areas, particularly the Bell's Neck. We've been chatting with Heinz Proft and the Division of Marine Fisheries. If we do have a herring opening in future years, or just to keep vandalism, especially off the Depot Street parking lot at bay, it is still an item that we need to be discussing. And Conservation's actually going to be meeting at the Bell's Neck for an on-site meeting this Friday. So I've been a little frugal with the spending in case we need to spend. When I priced out a few years ago, one gate, it was $8,000. So granted, the town has installed gates in other places, and we're able to fabricate them in-house. I didn't want to bank on that. So I'm hoping in another 6 months I will have an update for you on what exactly we're going to be spending, and potentially turn a little bit back to you. But we also purchased brand new rules and regulations signs.
Okay. Open it up to the board. Elizabeth?
No, I think it's great work so far, and I go to Bell's Neck a lot. That's my favorite place. So anything you can do. I do notice quite a few people like to make it messy. So good work. Thank you.
John?
Good work.
Robert?
I'm all set.
Kathy?
Good use of the money.
Mary?
Nothing more from me. Thanks.
I think only using 6,000 so far. I think we've done a lot of good just with 6,000. So I think we used it well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a
Thank
good
you for
night.
coming. Thank you for your report. Next. Housing Trust Executive, have I got it?
I think you're okay.
Penrose.
Here,
Oh,
right here, Penrose.
okay. There we go.
Hello.
Would you please identify yourself?
Yes, Charlie Adams from Penrose. Mr. Chairman, I have some handouts.
Sure.
Mind if I distribute them?
Thank you.
And I'll take all your extras.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Extras. I'm planning on the Russian army to be here, I guess. How are you?
They're dwindling.
Thank you very much.
I'll take one for myself, and I think these, there you go.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much for having me. I'll make this short and sweet. Again, appreciate the support you guys have given us for the Cape Cod 5 Operations Center in Orleans. Your support generated other communities as well. Can't remember what order we did this, but we're now up to 7 communities across the Cape that have supported this project. So it's quite an exciting thing to say that, and just so you know, when we actually were officially awarded the tax credits at the event where the Lieutenant Governor gave out the credits, and the head of the DHCD, which is the agency that gives them out, she specifically brought me over to the Lieutenant Governor and wanted me to let the Lieutenant Governor know about all the community support that this project had gotten. So it's very meaningful to the state, and doesn't go unnoticed that all of the different communities here on the Cape are supporting this project. It's something that the administration, the last one, and the current one, I know both are very interested in regional approaches to housing, and they do it all. They advocate that for all over the state, and it's really the Cape that has gotten that message, understands that message, and is responding in that way. The idea that affordable housing needs don't stop at town border lines, and so that's really important. So we are particularly excited. We're continuing to move forward. Our current plan is to close the project in August of this year. And so we're moving forward on design and construction with our architecture team and our contractor to get to that. We're working with our funders. The message you've heard from everybody that sat here before me is costs, 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 and more costs. And if you read in the paper, it's across the Cape there are some dramatic increases in some other projects that are done on the Cape. We have worked hard to reduce that gap to a number that's much more manageable, I think, and that's why we're confident to move forward to August. One of the things that we did was we switched, not to get too much into the weeds, but we switched from one set of credits to another, and that generated some additional equity for the project. So we've done that. And so we have a plan that to move forward to get into closing by August. And we've put together the sources and uses here that are attached that you can see. I'm happy to go through any of that. The source of funds that we are looking at too is ARPA money that the Barnstable County has put out. There's recently been the county approved some ARPA funds that are going to be available in the next month or two, and we're working to make an application for that to close up the gap that we still have remaining. But it's a much more manageable gap than some of the other projects that I've worked on that we've closed recently, and other projects that are on the Cape. So I think you know about the project itself. It's redoing the Cape Cod Center itself. It's adding on to the building, and then there'll be townhomes across the parking lot on that side. We're going to maintain the boulevard. I think you guys know the site. There's a nice boulevard that comes in there. That was important for us to work with the architect to maintain. Originally, we didn't have that, and we advocated to figure out a way to keep that nice view coming in there. So the town is hooked up to sewer, which was critical to the project. So that's helping to make sure it moves forward. And I'm here to take any questions that people have about where we go from here.
Really quick from the chairman.
Sure.
The opera funds, that's a foreign language to me, but Is that federal funds?
Yeah, so the ARPA money is the money that's sort of, that's been cut, that came out sort of during COVID with all the cost increases and all the, you know, the disruption to the economy across the board. There's all kinds of, it's the, someone can help me here, it's the American Recovery.
American Rescue Plan.
Rescue Plan.
Right.
Right, and so it was part of the big package that was passed, and so the cities and towns of various sizes have gotten money. There was actually an allocation made to Barnstable County itself, and they're putting out that money for affordable housing for projects that have these types of gaps. So I feel we're in a good position to try to access those funds, and we'll be going after those. So.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth?
So it says on this, you're going to be asking for 1.1
That's right.
million?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you begun discussions? I happen to represent, I'm the Harwich delegate to the county.
Oh, great.
So I know we have $6 million
Yep.
in gap funding.
Yes.
So have you been working?
Yes, we've had some initial conversations with the staff there. We're monitoring when it's we've been looking and waiting for when it's going to come out. We've had initial conversations with them. We're working with the town of Orleans folks as well to help facilitate that. And so we're actively trying to make contact with them and put ourselves in position to have that.
Okay, thanks.
Mary?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Great.
Robert?
Yeah, when you applied for your DHCD, the federal and state tax credits?
Yes.
Did you get it on the first round of
We did.
your application?
We did.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's not always easy.
Well,
So
it's a testament to you and the other
Right,
towns. I mean,
exactly.
that's not by accident, right? I
Right.
mean, the state really sees, they want to support, this checks all the boxes. They want to support good projects that have local support, and, when you go beyond the town borders, like, that's just like, phenomenal.
Right.
Also your ability to do that is in other projects, we're doing that on other projects in other communities, going out to surrounding towns, which makes a lot of sense. It checks the boxes. It's family housing. It's in an underserved community. It's got local support, new construction. So it really checked all the boxes of what the state really wants to support. So we're confident one way or another that we'll be able to move this forward.
Great. That's it.
All set, Bob. John?
Yeah, so, I think it says in your narrative here somewhere that you expect completion in the winter of 2024, which seemed like pretty surprising to me. By winter of 2024, do you mean less than a year from now?
No, so winter 2024 would probably, like that, we're talking December
December
2024. Right. So if we close in
Still
August,
pretty
that's.
quick, isn't it?
Yeah, our contractors can probably do it in 15 months. Maybe it'll take a little bit longer. If we start in August, that's a good time to start construction, because you'll get plenty of, months when you get in the ground before winter hits. And, what's the beauty about this project is that at least half of the construction will take place in an existing building. So we don't have a lot of foundation work to do. Like, it'll be pretty quick to put up those townhomes. It will be pretty quick to pour the foundation for the extension of the building. So, that's the goal. It's not imperative that it be done by the 2024th. If the contractor says it's, January 2025 or February 2025, that's,
So
you can make that work.
You have a contractor.
We are working with a contractor, yes. We're working with Delbrook as our contractor.
I see, okay. And just, you have this list, this anticipated funding date on, which is, I take that, to mean that's when you submit an invoice to the town, and that, you gave a project closing date, which I'm not sure what that means either, of August, and so I presume the anticipated funding date is dependent on the project closing. You have to have.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So I think what this is really saying is, I think we probably put 9/1 down there because, we're probably talking about August 31st, maybe it's September 1. I use August. So probably when Matt filled this out, he thought, okay, we're probably going to close, on September 1st, and that's when all that money would come in. So typically when we do the construction draw schedules, we try to get all of this money up front right when we close. For the basic reason of, this money doesn't carry any interest, so we want to try to get all the cheapest money in first, so we don't have to borrow against the construction loan. So our goal and our plan would be to get all this in right when we close, if some towns aren't ready, we can wait till later in the project. It's not as, you know, and it's more to you to let you know, hey, this is when we're gonna come knock on the door for the funds. If you told me, listen, we can't give it to you in September, we can give it to you in, you know, March of 2024, we can figure that out. It's not a big deal. When you've got a $30 million plus project, we can figure that out. Is that helpful? Does that answer your?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
Kathy?
Yeah, so, if you get the gap funding, you're saying shovels in the ground, early fall.
That's right.
Okay. I know you guys are a profit company, but I applaud your efforts to continue pushing forward to get us some decent
Oh, thank you.
housing on the Cape.
Appreciate it, thank you. We have good partners in the town of Orleans, too. And Cape Cod 5 Savings is a very patient seller, so it's good. Oh, the exciting news actually is they're actually buying the tax credit, the state tax credits, which is pretty exciting. Yeah,
Great.
yeah, so they'll be a part of it.
Anything else from the board? Thank you very much for
Great.
your presentation, sir.
And if you guys need me to come back at any point in time, and, you know, we're always happy to do it, especially on a day like today.
Yeah. All righty.
All right, thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay.
I never heard from
You
Tracy.
got the, yeah, she's not here, unless Elizabeth has a report.
No, I
Here,
don't,
Tracy
I'm
can-
sorry, I've been frantic.
I sent her emails,
So-
but I never heard back.
Okay.
Sometimes I
No, fair
go
enough,
back
fair
and I
enough.
come anyway.
Moving on to the
Yeah, no, she, it's, April is not the good month. It's when both Harwich and Chatham, you know, she does both. And we get our audit, we have to have our quarterly reports, we have to do all that. And her assistant is leaving, so I think she's a little overwhelmed. I can tell you that we've been giving out, you know, the restriction on the money we get from CPC is we can use it for $300 a month for 3 years. So we're helping a couple of people, but that restriction really makes it hard to help people. You know, $300 a month towards rent is not going that far. Yes.
Can I ask a question? Is there a reason that it has to be only 300, Elizabeth? I know that's how the project was originally set up. Is that $300 kind of a state mandate to keep you under a certain number, or
No,
could it
it's
be
town.
changed to be
From
available?
what I understand, Harwich, it's the town that has that restriction.
Okay.
You know, we're helping, all the housing authority does with this money is facilitate this for the town, because the housing authority knows how to do rental assistance.
So who put
Right,
together
so-
the rules for the program? Is it the housing, see, I always assumed it was the housing authority.
No, I
As opposed to
believe it was the select board many years ago, or finance director. Because
So that
I-
just seems like something that somebody should look into, because, you know, if the 300 isn't working,
Right.
you know, and maybe the 300 worked 10 years ago when the program was started, if it's not working
Antiquated
now,
yeah.
Yeah,
let's fix it and get people in rentals, if that's what it's
Right.
gonna take, you know?
I would love to do that.
Because I mean, sitting on housing committee for so many years, it was never something that we ever talked about during my tenure, which only dates back to 2016. But I just, you know, I just wondered, like I said, I assumed it was a housing authority, rules and regulations for it. And if it was selectmen, I mean, the selectmen have been saying they're chomping at the bit to do something, so maybe that's something that they can look into changing. If they set the rules, maybe they can look to change the rules.
Right.
And it might be something to reach out to Mary about.
But that has nothing to do with the CPC. That'd be the housing authority making that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
Of
Correct, but
what
it's
we can
spending
use the
CPC money.
CPC money for.
Right, it's what they're,
Okay.
it's what the
But
money.
it has to come from the authority. You're a state agency, right?
We're a state
Semi-autonomous.
agency,
Right.
but we have the ability to help our local, whatever they are, be they towns, cities, whatever, if they request us to and give us that money. So the town, through the CPC, gives the housing authority X amount of money and says, you know how to facilitate rental assistance programs. Will you facilitate this? This is our plan. Will you facilitate it for us? So that's what we do. But we don't,
So they're essentially holding money that what Elizabeth is saying is it's really a town program, not a housing authority program, and that it was the town that set the rules. So
as
I'm
far
not sure
as
how
I
long ago that
understand,
was, right? So,
Let's say, let's cut to the chase. How do we get it changed?
Well, I am one of the things on our agenda for our next meeting is going over potential uses, expanding housing authorities' reach, whether it be town money, state money, whatever. So,
Would it help for a letter of recommendation from
we
this
should-
board?
I should have an
Or is that,
answer for you in May.
I would think either board could reach out to the selectmen and say, how did this come about? Like if
I just take it from me that I'm still trying to figure out certain aspects of the
Understood.
housing authority because I've really been working on something else on it right now. So it's my understanding that that's what it is. I may be totally wrong. It may be state dictated. I don't think it is. But, so let me come back to you all with an answer in May. You can put the Housing Authority Chairwoman on the agenda.
okay, all right, that's fair enough. Jan? Okay.
And do you want me to reach out to Tracy again and just say, I want something, a report, or?
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
that's
So
part of
both.
the, that's right.
Two things, okay,
Yep.
guys?
Okay, we're moving on. Conservation Trust Executor, Michael Letch. You have the floor, sir. Please identify yourself.
Thank you. May I distribute the
Absolutely.
reports? Thanks.
thanks, Michael.
Yeah, sure. Happy spring, everybody.
Today we finally
Happy
felt it.
pollen for some people,
Exactly.
not all of us.
I'm loving the weather, but I, sound like I have tuberculosis.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
you know me.
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present a status update for Article 34 from the May 2021 town meeting, also Article 34 from the May 2022 town meeting, each focusing on different phases of the Harwich Natural Heritage Trail Project, which is a component of the overall Colebrook Eco Restoration Project, which is a partnership between Harwich Conservation Trust, Town of Harwich, the state's Division of Ecological Restoration, and the federal agency, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, among other partners. We've held several meetings, design meetings, since the last report dated October 13th, 2022. You can see the series of meetings there listed on page 1 and the various meeting participants in the lower half of page 1. We're nearing the final designs for both the wheelchair accessible trail loop, half-mile wheelchair accessible trail loop, and the approximately 100-foot boardwalk. Related to these articles, but not part of the funding, was the effort to acquire 203 Bank Street. Recall at the time of the last status report in October, the disposition of the town-owned property at 203 Bank Street was What has unfolded since then is described in the section subheaded Property Acquisition and Parking. So in summary, Harwich Conservation Trust and its nonprofit partner, the Harwich Fire Association, submitted a joint proposal to the Select Board for consideration of a sale by the Select Board to both organizations of 203 Bank Street. Select Board chose that proposal and closed with HCT and HFA, short for Harwich Fire Association, on December 8th. So that gave us the ability to move forward with phase 3, again, not subject to funding through either the articles as part of the status report, but phase 3 being the design of the parking area, so we can integrate parking with the proposed half-mile wheelchair accessible trail loop. So you can see a draft design on page 3, page 4 of this report. And that's followed by the 75% designs for the wheelchair accessible trail loop and the boardwalk. Again, unrelated to the funding part of these articles, but related to part of our experience in working with the permitting agencies, because we're nearly finished with the permitting aspect of this complex project as well. One of the questions raised by one of the Conservation Commission members was the outreach to the community about the eco restoration project and the various elements, to which we shared that we've been on local channel 18 several times about the project. We've sent townwide newsletters to more than 10,000 households, including information about the eco restoration project. And then what we decided to do after that Town Conservation Commission meeting is hold a series of free guided walks at the Robert F. Smith Colebrook Preserve, specifically focusing on the eco restoration project and other elements such as the public access improvements endorsed by your committee, funded by the Community Preservation Act Fund. And so you can see the dates there. We've led 15 so far since September. You can see the status of the funding disbursement on page 3, what has been expensed to date. I'm anticipating the balance of what's remaining in each Article 34 to be expensed to construction costs. That's where we move into the next steps area. We're looking to finalize with the Town of Harwich Select Board the written agreement that governs the flow of town funds, as well as the federal U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant funds toward the eco restoration construction. Again, elements of which are the construction of both the wheelchair accessible trail loop and the boardwalk. We expect each of those elements to be constructed toward the end of the eco restoration construction. That will probably take place in winter to spring of 2024. We were hoping to have gone out to bid to contractors by now, but again, the written agreement between the town and HCT hasn't yet been completed. We hope to complete that by June, and then go out to bid and hopefully go to construction this summer, at the latest this fall.
Mike, excuse me, you're talking about a separate agreement, separate grant agreement than the CPA?
Yes, I'm talking about an overriding document, an overall document between the Select Board and Harwich Conservation Trust that governs the flow of the town meeting voter approved funds from town meeting 2017, which authorized up to $2 million towards the eco restoration construction. So that's separate from the 2 CPA funding articles for this public access improvement. But that agreement that governs the up to $2 million in eco restoration construction funds has to be signed and put in place before we can go out to bid for eco restoration contractors. So that's where we are at in the process. I'm glad to answer any questions. I'm glad to answer any questions.
All right, I'll open it up to the floor. Mary?
I'm good for now, thanks.
Elizabeth?
No, I love it.
Robert?
I'm good.
John?
All set, thank you.
Catherine?
You gotta ask a question, right? Right, Mike?
Yes.
Hold
So-
on, Michael.
No,
You
no,
wouldn't
no.
be you.
Right. I don't know why you guys aren't more curious. So on page 4,
Yes.
which is, I believe, a schematic of the current Bank Street Fire Station parking lot. And, is it page 4? Yeah, I'm thinking four. Yeah,
It's actually a draft design for what we envision to be the new parking area.
okay.
Yep.
So could you just kind of, explain what we're looking at?
Yes.
What are the squares and are those parking spaces?
Yes, good question. So, again, just to recap, the area of land on which this proposed parking area design is situated is approximately 2 acres. It's comprised of 4 separate parcels. All 4 parcels owned in common between Harwich Conservation Trust and Harwich Fire Association for the time being. Separately, as you know, Harwich Fire Association has an article that you've endorsed that will be going to town meeting for restoration of the historical integrity of the original firehouse. So southeast of that, to answer Kathy's question, you see 2 parallel lines of spaces. Those are the intended parking spaces, and we intend to share those parking spaces between both organizations. We think there won't be really competition for use of those spaces. We think use of the area of the parking spaces by both organizations will work out well. We do have 4 handicap parking spaces allotted, since one of the main features of the public access improvements is the half-mile wheelchair accessible trail loop. And running south from 2 of the closest handicap parking spaces, you see a sinuous path, has the word gravel written in it. It's a little small, but you can see that, and heading south. That's proposed to be the wheelchair accessible connector to the overall half-mile wheelchair accessible trail loop. To the west of that connector is what you see as observation deck. We actually envision that to be a surface of stone dust, not necessarily a wooden or other material, simply because of ease of maintenance, lower cost over time to maintain. And we see that as a real feature for folks who may not have as much time to explore the trails to the south, but still want to take in a view and enjoy the setting. We worked with the town conservation administrator on locating each of these outside the 50-foot wetland buffer. And you see to either side of the observation deck and just north what are essentially stormwater management swales for any excess stormwater that might accumulate on the parking area, and because of the grade, it will have a place to naturally filtrate. And then to the north, you see an area outlined in dashed lines in a rectangle, the Future Education Center. So that's a placeholder that Harwich Conservation Trust has just put on this design for the time being, in case sometime in the future, as time and resources allow, we have the ability or need to place a structure there that can help support our programming, specifically guided walks. Maybe it's a roof structure like a gazebo, or maybe it's something more robust, something that we can take a group inside out of the elements, a place to teach about the area that they've just seen or about to see. Which is the largest protected landholding of Harwich Conservation Trust, and amazing that there's about 2 miles of trails right there in the heart of Harwichport.
So, Michael, just what is this to the left of the crosswalk? It says something Cape Cod something.
Oh, it says Cape Cod berm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was set aside by BSC Group as sort of a vegetated divider between the entrance to the front of the firehouse and then the main entrance to the parking area. This design dated March 17th, we've actually, Harwich Fire Association, HCT, agreed that that berm should not exist. That we think that it's better to not have that berm, better site safety lines.
Okay,
So that will come off on the next iteration.
okay.
And just south of there, it'll be a grassed area, but we'll have a few spots for overflow parking in case we have, either organization has events which max out the designated parking spaces.
So
We-
how many parking spaces altogether? You don't need to count them if you don't know.
Yes, I'd say under 20.
Okay.
All set, Kathy?
Yeah, just a quick question. To the north of the berm, are those parking spaces on the other side of, or like backing in for the parking of the truck or something, those
You know,
spaces?
Pardon me, it's 25 spaces.
Okay,
And room for overflow
Yeah.
parking. And then you're talking about the three
yeah.
to north. Yep, that was a request by Harwich Fire Association for some point in time where they construct their apartments or housing, maybe on the second floor of the firehouse, I think is one of their ideas to accommodate, a contribution to community housing or support
Right, okay,
fire personnel.
okay. I'm good.
One odd question. In both those lanes of parking, you have handicap access to 4 units.
Yes.
Are they side by side? They are across from each other? Is there enough room for an a caravan, for example, to open up its wing, to allow a power unit to place a wheelchair on the ground between where the vehicle's parked
Ye-
and where the next handicap
I
space
think
is?
that's a good point, and that's how it's designed.
Okay,
There's some
all right.
cross-hatched areas in between the three, which are located the closest to the wheelchair connector
Okay.
loop, trail. And
I couldn't see those.
there's a fourth just to the north.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
I misunderstood what those 3 parking spots that Kathy just mentioned. So, I assume the fire, it's going to be a museum, they said. Is there a place for them to have staff parking that isn't going to take away from guest parking? That's what I thought those 3 lines were.
I don't know their plans for staffing when they renovate the first floor. I imagine if they were to ever have staff that would be needed for that part of the firehouse, they'd be possibly parking in one of the spots just south of the building. The 3 that were placed to the northwest of the building, if it depends how many apartments they actually build. And maybe there's a spot there, Elizabeth.
Right.
So I think it's to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy?
I'm just, any plans for any electric charging stations?
It's a great idea. Yes, but we are not sure where yet because there's still work to be done to, I think, reconnect or bring the electricity up to code for the firehouse. So at that time, when we actually have a final design and we can move to construction, hopefully that will be in parallel with the progress of HFA on renovating the firehouse, and we can better understand where those might be.
Okay. Michael, thank you very much for your
Yes.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for the support. It's exciting.
Okay, next. Yeah, Elaine, you're in here somewhere. I can see it. Real Estate Open Space Chair.
Good evening, thank you. I have a handout.
Would you please identify yourself
Oh,
for the
Elaine
audience?
Chauvelin, Chair of Real Estate and Open Space Committee.
Thank you.
If I may hand these out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please.
Thank you.
Wow.
Now, the reason I've handed those out is because we'd just like to show that that publication has been used to update the public on what's happened with these properties. So we're talking about Article 37, that was at the May 2022 town meeting, and it's relating to the property known as Six Ponds Great Woods. And I think you're all very familiar with this property. You have the materials that I submitted to you, and I think I just highlight. Harwich Conservation Trust will purchase the property in June of 2023 and convey the conservation restriction at that time to the town and DCR. The goal funding for this project was $3 million, and HCT met that fundraising goal at the deadline of December 31st, 2022. So, great job they did with raising their funds. I'm sorry, I've got this same problem. In the fall of 2022, the town approved, and you all approved, the $400,000. The town was approved for the $400,000 state land grant. The compact, Cape Cod Compact, has been contracted by the town of Harwich to complete the grant compliance requirements in order to enable grant distribution by the state to the town. So the town will receive $400,000 grant in fiscal year '24, most likely sometime in the fall. to
Okay,
December.
can I stop you there for one
Sure.
moment, please? Chairman's privilege. They actually put forward an application that someone followed up on.
Yes.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Which will reimburse the open space portion of the town's Community Preservation Fund. In June of 2022, on the town's behalf, the Cape Cod Compact submitted a draft conservation restriction to the state Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs Division. The conservation restriction has been submitted for town council to review, and the Town Conservation Commission will review it at its meeting on April 20th. The Select Board will then review for approval, and the Massachusetts DCR's attorney has reviewed the conservation restriction. So Harwich Conservation has a closing date of June 1st, 2023 with the Copelas family, and Harwich Conservation Trust will convey a permanent conservation restriction at that time or before June 30th to be jointly held by the town and the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to the board. Mary?
No questions at this time.
Kathy?
Thanks, Elaine.
Oh, you never call me second.
I know, right?
Yeah, I had mentioned this to Michael, when I had read this previously. So, we originally thought we were gonna have 75 acres, now we have 67 acres, right? Due to, land research and surveys. And then there's a 3.1 acre parcel that was removed from the area, for whatever reasons. I don't quite understand all of them, but, what's being done right now about that particular parcel, the 3.1
Michael?
acre parcel?
Directing that to the chair or to
Whoever can
Well, I
answer
think
the question.
Michael?
Michael can best answer that.
Welcome to the hot seat.
Thanks.
Michael knew I was gonna ask him this question.
So
he did.
as Kathy summarized, the original article focused on, and I think that's, the original article is an exhibit in the report, Exhibit B, focused on approximately 75 acres. That was based on assessor records. And since the approval by town meeting, there have been 2 definitive land surveys completed for the parcels that are subject of the purchase and then subject to the conservation restriction to be jointly held by the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation, the Town Conservation Commission. And during that time, the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation completed a incredibly comprehensive title exam, 379 pages. And they determined, DCR determined that an approximately 3.1 acre parcel was actually only had about a third interest of legitimate marketable ownership claim by the Copolis family. The great news is the rest of the parcels had 100% clear title. But since this one parcel, parcel J3, which is shown on Exhibit C in the report, which is just north of, actually sandwiched between 2 town of Harwich owned properties to the north. It's a little hard to see, but you can make out it says parcel J3, map 93. DCR felt that since it was a third title interest, only a third there, that should be excluded from the conservation restriction to be jointly held by DCR and the Town Conservation Commission. So that's why that's been removed from the CR, the conservation restriction. However,
What does that mean?
Yeah.
however, the Harwich Conservation Trust is still going to acquire that 1/3 interest that the Copolis family has. So that we'll still have a foot in the door, shall we say, in terms of ownership. A third interest in that parcel J3, 1/3 interest in that 3.1 acres, 100% ownership interest in the rest of the parcels.
So 100% ownership of 67
Seven.
acres.
That's right.
A third of 3.1
That's
acres.
correct, yes.
And then what is the plan, is the other 2/3 of this particular parcel
Owners unknown.
owners unknown? Okay. So are there plans down the road to pursue that through the town? You know, in many discussions with real estate open states about owners unknown and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Is that an executive session?
to be determined.
Yeah, just, I'm just wondering about sort of, you've assembled this package and, you know, wondering like what pieces have fallen out of the package and, you know, how are we gonna assemble it back together again?
Right. It's gonna take more research, more title research.
Okay.
Mary?
So I guess that raises a question for me. Is that parcel currently not on the tax rolls as an owner's unknown parcel, or has it been
Coppola,
being taxed to the Copolis family?
the latter.
Okay, so then that raises an issue when, you know, the next round of taxes, what they're gonna do with the parcel.
Yeah, that's something for the Board of Assessors to
Right.
look at.
So then you would be talking either, I mean, you don't have an outstanding tax lien to foreclose on because it's been being taxed by the Copolis family, and presumably HCT will make sure that they've paid in full the taxes before they close. So really, the only other option at that point would be, regardless of owners unknown, would be an eminent domain taking to clear title. Like, that's essentially how you would, I would think the only way you would go about doing it at that point, if there's no other means to go about gaining title. So it's a hiccup.
Yeah, but what I'm hoping is that this wedge or this piece of property is not developable.
Right, it's landlocked,
Okay, so that's a positive.
yes.
And you'd be considered a joint tenant at that point, right? I mean, or tenants in common, I guess,
With whomever the
el-
other owners
whoever
are.
else shows up, and, because everybody shows up when there's land involved, right? We know eventually they do.
Where is it on this map exactly?
It is, that is
The 3.1.
Exhibit A. Yeah. So
A.
it's,
Oh, and the color.
it's fairly close to Route 6.
It's the white block
Yes.
Oh, the white block?
Yes.
next to,
Okay,
next to Hawk's Nest.
okay. Which, is that near the access where the rest area is?
Oh, off Route 6?
Yeah,
It's actually more to the east.
okay. Okay.
All set, Kathy?
I think so.
Michael, for whatever this is worth, there's no stamp after my name, but I was told by a very prominent attorney years and years ago that there's no such thing as landlocked property. So, keep that in mind. Robert,
I don't know what that means, what you just said.
it's simple. There's no, well,
There's always a way to unlock
Oh,
landlocked
okay.
property.
Okay. No,
By
I don't have
buying
any
what's around
questions.
it.
It's-
Well, should that be a concern of ours then?
You know,
I mean, should that be a concern of ours?
I don't think so in this case because it's a good point. In this case, there will be Harwich Conservation Trust owned property subject to the permanent conservation restriction jointly held by DCR and Town Conservation Commission all the way around that property. And then it's bordered by Town of Harwich property on the north and south.
Okay. So the answer is, we don't have to worry about it.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see him.
I want to know.
Cool.
okay. John?
I have no further questions, but I appreciate all of your questions.
No one appreciates my questions, John.
No, I do.
I appreciate it.
I always do.
I learned something.
I always learn something from.
Elizabeth, you have the floor.
I have no other questions, because Kathy's brilliant questions always cover it.
I got nothing else to do.
Okay, folks,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you very much.
By the way, this photograph of this fox on this page, they don't generally get that big, but that's as big as a red setter. And I've seen them out in Morris Island.
Have you?
Yeah, that's a beautiful animal.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
Thanks.
okay, moving on.
So I know you have my name on it, but it's really Bob, because Bob is the brain trust.
Okay,
You did fail to forward me the notice that a report was due, though.
go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, so I passed this out, the report.
You want to get up over that side, sir?
No, do I have to?
Yes. You're making a presentation.
Well, Mary?
Sorry.
Here you go.
I'll sit with you if you like. Let's be honest, Bob has done all the work.
Would you identify yourself, please, sir?
Yes, Robert Doan, Historic District and Historical Commission member. So the report, just to recap, I had included the various updates I've had before, but it is to identify clusters and then documenting the different houses in the clusters in Harwich. A lot of that work's been previously done, but they cannot be put into Macris because they're missing historical data. So what we've done is identified the properties for historical data, and the current status is that list, plus a statement of work, has been made up, as well as people who can do the research, was submitted to the town administration in February to have the RFP made up. And I have been informed with Megan that the The RFP is going to be produced in the next few weeks, and then anticipates about 4 to 5 weeks after that, we should get some bids in.
All set.
it.
Okay, is there any questions from the board? We'll start with Mary.
I'm just gonna commend Bob on doing the 99.9999998% of the work for all of this. He is, he went through the lists, he's spoken to, the Cape Cod Commission representatives, he's worked with administration to try and make sure that a statement of work can actually get out there so that we can start, get somebody on kind of completing the work, so he's been a one-man show.
Thank you.
John?
So I've probably asked this question before, and my apologies for not retaining the answer, but what is MACRIS again,
Oh.
please?
That's the Massachusetts database of all historical items.
Specific to historic.
It's strictly historic, and they can be, historic, but it's not just houses, it's historic districts, it's clusters, it's monuments, it's gravestones. It covers anything along those lines. So it's identified, and it helps you when you, particularly for our case in the Historic Commission, when we have people wanting to do demolitions, we have the property is then well documented of the architectural style, and with this new thing, it'll be added the historical nature of that property, of, you know, who owned it, was it significant, was there an event there, or things like that.
Who owns the database?
It's how Massachusetts Historical Commission.
Which is all part of the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office.
So it's
They were
a
a
state
subdivision of
agency.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I think part of the reason is their standards have changed over the years as to what was required to go into the system. Back in the day, it was very minimal information that had to be put into MACRIS. So what Bob is saying, with all of these properties were put on at a time where the documentation didn't need to be, you know, A-level documentation. It was very
Right.
basic, minimal information in the system, and now we've got them in the system, but now they don't meet current standards, so the hope is to update those so that they actually come up to standard now.
Thank you. All set, John? Robert?
Mm-hmm.
There's a particular unit in this town that is used at the State House at different levels for historic something or other, whatever it is. Do you cover that in this? If, let's say it's a piece of paper, a document, a book,
That is not,
what you,
no, that does not include in this.
is there any way to get that type of information included in what you're,
Well, you're talking about if the town owns a book or something that's of historical nature, I don't believe that's qualified to go into MACRIS.
oh, okay.
Like the soldiers at the library, do
Right.
those?
Yeah, no, I don't see anything like that in MACRIS.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth?
I'll start my sentence the way John started his. I may have asked this before. But this 100-year list,
Okay,
is it every house that's 100 years old?
Correct.
Even if it's, because we're getting up to the point now where 100 years ago, what nothing, you know, was mass-produced junk housing. So does,
well,
Well,
but
but
a
you know what I
Sears and
mean.
Roebuck house
you're right.
that was made out of sent from Sears and Roebuck is very historically significant now.
Well,
And
that-
Yet, many
but-
people consider them junk houses.
But, I mean, every house that's 100 years old is considered a historical,
Well, we put it on our historic inventory. Now, they have not necessarily had a full study, like they won't necessarily have a MACRIS entry unless we identify it to go in. And you have to do the architectural survey and all that. And the latest additions have not been scheduled to do that. That would be a future funding to kind of catch up where we are on that.
So for the rest of time, every year, you have to add new houses and go into
Basically.
depth on every
the
single
100
Well,
one?
we don't. We just list them. And then, yes, eventually you want to develop a macros database. Now, you could look at it and consider it a junk house, or there's no significant architecture, there's no significant events that took there, and it'd be on the 100 list, but you may never do a macros database. And if
So
that
somebody-
person came ahead and said, I want to tear down this house, the commission would say, there's no historical significance, go to it.
Okay, that was my
Yeah.
So the
question,
hundred,
so they
the
don't have
100
to
years,
stay.
right, the 100 years is significant because we have a demolition delay bylaw in Harwich that requires every house that is 100 years of age or older to come before historic with a notice of intent, with what they intend to demolish, and then notice has to go out, a public hearing is held, and then the HDHC makes a determination as to whether, as Bob said, whether it's historically significant or not, and whether we're gonna impose a delay. Under the bylaw as it currently exists, it's 100 years, and our only option is to impose a demolition delay. People can wait out, we can put a 12-month delay, and people can wait it out and still knock it down. The goal is that hopefully they come to some other solution in the interim. But that's what the demo delay bylaw is currently.
And there's no magic about 100 years. That was just selected, and it's of common use. But I believe Chatham's 75 years, and other towns have different things. And you don't even have to be old. It could be something done in the last 20 years that a major event took place at it,
Right.
and you can put it in macros. It's perfectly fine to do that.
All right, now I understand, thank you.
Right. Okay.
I'd love to debate this with you, but I'm not gonna do it tonight. Kathy?
Yeah, so I applaud you, Bob, for whatever you've had to do to get this to where it is. But what takes so long? I mean, because 6 months ago, the report
know.
wasn't that
And-
different, and
No, it isn't. And it was-
exactly
it's-
what is the RFP gonna say in terms of,
Oh, it's.
like, how many hours is this you gonna employ
It
somebody to
gives
do
the-
what?
It gives the description of what they have to do. So you have to go back and find what the most current rules are for the historic preparation. And then you make up a list of things that they do. And it's pretty well lined out by Massachusetts Historic Commission that does that. And that's most of it's copied from there. But then we do additional things that we want to see out of it. Like, for instance, looking in the independent newspaper for the person that owned it, and you can quickly pick up, things about it, like the Albert House. We know it was Alfonso Weeks, who was a very successful businessman that had bogs on Bank Street, and he could afford to build that Victorian at that time.
Part of what the time frame was too, was Bob spent a lot of time identifying all of the
Yeah, but
parcels and the buildings as well.
and
So
a
like,
lot of that delay is mine.
No, I'm not, I'm
It's
just,
not.
I'm
That's not
wondering,
the-
I'm not saying that, I'm just wondering what had to be gathered in order to get an RFP to be put together?
Yeah, first, it was the identification of the properties that took the longest to run through, and had to build certain spreadsheets that had to compare with notes what's like in Macris now. Is it already there? Does it need updating? Or are these new properties? This is actually the next step that the CPC paid for back in 17, that original
Right.
big study with Miranda
big books, yeah.
Dupre. That whole thing, that was basically 2/3 completed, and this is the last third to finish that project, basically. So we just had to identify which properties are still valid or which had already been documented, because a lot of those that she presented to us had already been documented. So we had to figure that out.
So,
that research was significantly time consuming. It wasn't like, it's not looking at a list and saying,
Yeah.
and picking 10 off of a list. It was not only looking at the list, picking them off the list, comparing them, doing the historical research, and then coming up with a final list that's gonna go out and be included on the RFP.
There were gaps you had to fill in.
Oh, yeah.
There were chasms.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
So the last CPA funding produced those 4 big
Books,
books. And what you're saying is we're gonna get another book or two
Yes, you
out of this
actually will.
additional work, is that
And,
what
and
you're
you will
saying?
actually get entries into the Macris database. That's the goal.
Okay.
Which we didn't get the last time.
Didn't get the
Because it
last
was
time.
missing information.
And will this, how will this set up the HDHC?
So
So
it-
moving forward,
So it gives us better information when an applicant comes before us. So by looking at these individual parcels, we can say, I mean, take for example, Tip O'Neill lived down here off of Bank Street. You know, that's a home that's not 100 years old yet,
Right, but it's-
but we could probably put it on our
Right.
list of historic inventory because of who he was and what he did. So that information sets not only us up for success on the commission level, but it's also when we go looking to apply for grants and for other
But it's also,
Funding.
because particularly since the work was done in clusters and identifying parts of Harwich that were original, so people doing research on that in the future will have a ready resource that has already identified those type properties.
okay, and when this is completed,
Yeah.
will you have a process in place for adding
Well,
additions
yeah,
to
when
this
this
list?
list is done, we know there's about another 100 that need to be caught up with because they've been recently added or whatever. So once this project's done, we'll probably be coming back for some additional funding to catch up on what's happened since that original list was made.
Okay,
Big project.
I think too, I just want to say, when that big list was done, we've seen a number of properties that were put on there
That-
that the research wasn't fully done, so they were put on with the date of 1915.
Right.
Some of them, it looked like they were Sears and Roebuck kit houses, for example, the house on Schoolhouse Road. That looked like it was a kit house. It was really built in the 1940s. So it wasn't 100 years of age. So those are situations where we've been able to say, put a date on it by looking at deed research and in removing it for now, but we will know what the date should be and it can go back on at a later date. So those are some of the things that happened. Like there wasn't the deed research really to get the volume that they got. They didn't do a lot of the deed research
That's right.
that Bob is really focusing on now to get get into the details and get into the nitty-gritty.
Right.
Okay, so one question I do have, is the original newspaper building in the campground on that list?
What do you mean, the newspaper building?
Little hut, whatever they want to call it, that the first newspaper of the town of Harwich was developed?
Before the Independent?
Was it the Independent?
Yeah, but that was up in Howard Center.
No, there's one in the campgrounds.
Well, was that like a summer? I don't know that paper.
ooh,
Ooh, something
If-
to
Unless the
Juicy
Independent
tidbit.
was down there originally.
There was a,
But was that like a summer newsletter type thing?
I don't know, I don't remember.
I have never heard of that.
something to investigate.
Yeah.
To put it on our next meeting agenda.
there you go.
Okay. Anything else from the board? John?
I just need further clarification because I still don't quite get the big picture here.
Yeah.
Which is, it seems like there's at least one like statutory requirement that's being satisfied here, but it doesn't have to do with the Macris database. It's your inventory of historic houses.
It's our town bylaw.
Right, so, but what you're doing with the Macris database is different from that. Is that satisfying some Commonwealth statutory requirement, or is it accumulating data for the event when somebody wants to do something else, apply for a grant to fix something up? Is that what the whole point is, or is there some other requirement on the state level that
It's-
towns have to accumulate this information.
It's not required, but it's recognized by, I think, virtually every town to do this, because what it is it is a step towards if you want to register a house with historic, national historic database. So it's an intermediate step that you typically have to do to get state identification to do that.
Are there credits for that?
Not that
Tax credits?
I am not familiar with any. Certainly, if it's historic preservation, if you get on the national level, absolutely. And there may be some local credits on the state if the state has some things, and they may require it to be on the MACRIS, but I'm not familiar with those. Definitely on the national level, very important. Yeah, you can get all kinds of federal credits.
We have a very unique setup here in Harwich too, because it's really a blend of two commissions. So the Historic District Commission and the Historical Commission really traditionally have two different roles.
Yeah.
The District Commission deals with strictly historic district situations. The Historic Commission deals with kind of everything else, historic artifacts, homes, anything else that would come down the pike on behalf of the town. Harwich, in its infinite wisdom, at some point decided to blend the two together and make it one. So we kind of do a blend of everything.
Well,
Whereas-
and all our districts are fully documented now,
Correct.
and they're in great shape as far as
Absolutely.
in the database, and that was done earlier.
Yeah.
So this is really geared towards the outer neighborhoods that are not currently historic districts.
East Harwich, for example?
What do you mean? It's not, I mean, they have a cluster out there, it's all,
Yeah.
and it's the people that worked particularly in the sea, you know, out in that end,
Okay.
and farming too. There was some farming out there.
My property sits on one of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Any other questions from the board? Thank you, sir, for your presentation.
Lot of work.
So no, don't do that.
Decision, right, with the playground money.
Okay. There's nothing for the Judah Eldridge. Okay.
We got a report. Yeah, we got it. We got it.
Okay. Voting to rescind the balances of the CPC accounts will be next. 2020, Article 37, Harwich Community Playground Complete Project.
I'll make a motion to rescind the balance that the Assistant Town Administrator has verified is
In the
left
amount
over
of?
in the amount of $14,107.09.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Discussion. Anybody from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, next, we'll go to Cindy. You have the floor. Thank you for being patient.
I'm going to stand because I've been sitting all night. I'm just here to see where you guys stand on what we had presented the last meeting. So if you've got thoughts.
Okay, thoughts from the board. We'll start with Kathy.
Okay, couple things. One, really around town, it's mostly the rec department that has any acknowledgement of CPC. I know there's something out in front of the library, but, so I went and looked at the ones that the rec department had, and it really is woefully inadequate for what we're looking for. You know, we're looking for more than something that you gotta get up really close and see, okay? Also, I mean, like, I thought that the South Harwich Meeting House had a sign, which they did before, it's no longer there. So, I think, you know, we need to develop, once we decide on this, we need to kind of maybe come up with some guidelines of how we're gonna get people to do this and,
How far back do you want to go, you think, with the signs? I mean, with the projects
I think that, well, personally, I think that there are some obvious things that we want to, for example, any land purchases, you can pass those around, but that we, I think, contributed to. Usually there's either a kiosk or a parking lot or something like that where we could have signage. That's a given. I think that for a lot of the historic things, we want a little bit more, something a little bit, I think, classier than colorful logo. I think it should just be about historic preservation and then a statement. Because I don't think we should put something like this at the cemetery or the museum or whatever.
Those should be brass plaques, right?
Yeah.
Or something similar. Like, on a building, I think something more permanent than a wooden sign in the front yard. I mean, I think those signs are good during a project, and there are some places where they're like a Brooks Park, those like parks and recs kind of things. I think, you know, a nice big sign makes sense. On the Brooks Free Library or on the museum, I think maybe something more permanent that is, I think you could have one for a while and then maybe something permanently affixed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's something we're gonna have to decide.
Or it's a monument, like, you know, like
Right.
at the cemetery, it could be.
It's a matter of visibility too. I mean, if it's too small or if it's in a part of the building that's never seen, then it doesn't make, we shouldn't even be spending the money.
Have you seen the what's down at Saugatuck Harbor? There's, right as you're going into down the ramp, isn't there a,
We didn't give them any money, so.
no, but I'm saying, I wanna say it was a memorial of some sort,
Okay.
and I don't remember what it is, but I remember seeing something there.
So, I mean, I think that the concept of the logo is wonderful. And I know we all talked last, a couple weeks ago about, making this crisper and making this, whatever. And I know that those are whatever. And then we had talked about what we wanted for a statement. And I think something like this, which is support for this project was funded by the taxpayers of Harwich through the Community Preservation Act Fund. Which, doesn't say we funded the whole thing, or it doesn't say we didn't fund the whole thing. It just says that we provided support.
All right, so, hold on, let's cut to the chase. Can we get an agreement on the verbiage, this verbiage, so that we can go forward? Does anybody have a disagreement with what that says?
Will you read it again?
Sure. Support for this project was funded by the taxpayers of Harwich through the Community Preservation Act Fund.
Perfect.
Recommendations from the board?
Can I just make
Of course.
a suggestion, which is you're using the word fund twice?
Okay,
Support for this project was provided by.
Okay.
As opposed
There you
to
go.
Good enough.
by.
perfect.
Thank you, John.
By the taxpayers of Harwich.
By the taxpayers of Harwich through the Community Preservation Act Fund.
Good language, everybody? Okay, moving on, the next thing, the logo.
Okay.
So, just a comment, it's nice that the rec department has put up all those signs, but
Thank you.
one of the striking things about them is each of them looks different.
Right.
And I think one of Cindy's points is about branding.
Yeah.
In order to do branding, you have to have consistent
Right.
signage. So I think that's a critical part of what's happening here. And I guess we have this
Yeah, I love that.
suggestion, but then there's a lot of verbiage there that we just agreed was good verbiage. How does that fit in there?
So what we
Again,
can
it would
do
go
i-
to the size of whatever
Yeah.
we're gonna do.
So what we can do is, now that you guys have come up with the verbiage for this, we'll take what we did, play around with it, and then come back with, okay, the logo with all that word. So then this is what your sign's gonna look like, and what the plaque will look like. So maybe we'll research a couple of ideas, look to see what other ones may have, and then come back with it.
So. the
And I
rec
think then
depart-
the size as well, like, I think the size is gonna be based on what the project is.
Right, well, the one thing I was gonna say, when you mentioned the plaque, the bronze plaque, first of all, we're looking at a super expense for that. Second of all, it's gonna be in the entryway of what, my guess is the entryway of whatever the building is, how we use it. But it's not really gonna generate, when you drive by, you're not gonna
That's true.
see, and that's the point of this.
That's true.
I think with
So-
these signs, it sounds like is
We could do
more of a
both.
thank
We have the
you
money.
to the taxpayers and to the fund. So you want to kind of show it off.
John, go ahead.
So, again, the rec department signs are a concrete example we have, and those signs, they are crediting CPC, but they're also conveying a bunch of other information that is not what, is not part of what we're
John, the
trying
rec department's not gonna pull those signs down. No of the expense that they endured to put them up.
No, but
So
like-
let's,
But we could get a,
but you, as far as what you're looking for, you're right. You're right, I understand. So,
I'm just asking the
wh-
question.
what- what
how
would
does
your-
Whatever we do fit into whatever other message, say, the rec department is trying to convey, which is a broader message. It's about who was involved in the rec department. Are we thinking of this thing that would go on a sign like that, and you would work the rest of what you're doing, or whoever else, the Historic District Commission, or whoever else wants to convey multiple messages, I guess,
Well,
about.
I think that the.
hold on, Kathy.
right.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
so, as we've been saying, this is about branding, right? Perfect example, that, museum is not gonna be done in 4 weeks, We have a big sign on that, if we put a big sign on it with this logo, branding, people will see that. Most of Harwich will see it, everybody uses that
And
corner
most of our
at most
visitors will
places.
see it too.
Yeah,
And that will register with them. So then, if we make up a sticker to add to the logo, to add to any established signs that already exist, that will register with people. Oh, that's the CPC thing. And you can always also, design-wise, you can make something any shape you want. So if they want to keep the park sign that way, you could always just add a strip at the bottom with our logo and the sign and the verbiage. There's always a way. But if we make really big signs where things are in progress, because people always look at things that are in progress, hey, see how it's going, whatever, that will enforce the brand in people's minds, so that then, if there's something where we just want to add a little logo, it will register with people. I know when I see a pine cone in green ink, I think conservation. Do you see what I mean? So, it's not gonna happen in a month, but it will, you put up the big signs where you can, and that will make it register with people when they see the little sign. Does that make sense?
Kathy.
Yeah, the rec department has erected just a few big signs, okay? And,
They erected 2 big signs for their complex,
right,
Brooks Park
right,
and
Brooks
for.
Park and the recreation complex.
Right.
And, we've got this, little acknowledgement here, but it doesn't really, talk to what we want people to know, in that, we're funding, a new pickleball thing, we're funding the resurfacing, we're funding the playground, we're funding the gazebo at the park there, or whatever, I don't know, not the gazebo, but the pavilion. we're funding the restroom at Sand Pond. I mean, I think that we need to, get the signage out there. And I agree that in progress is good. That's one approach. And then for things that have already taken place, something more permanent, but maybe not like in your face, maybe at the entrance to any of these buildings, like the library back entrance that everybody uses off the parking lot. Something on the building, very tasteful, that says, whatever.
So you're talking about a plaque?
Doesn't have to be, I don't think, a bronze plaque, because that's too
No,
expensive. I know, that's what
what I
would be
mean.
nice, but, and people don't necessarily read all that stuff anyway. We want something that's gonna jump out at people.
But I think to Kathy's point, she's right. I mean, there are places for signs, and even if you're talking at the recreation facilities, there should be a sign at the entrances and the exits, or along the trails, that acknowledge support was provided by taxpayers of the town of Harwich through the CPA fund. And then, yes, I think at the pickleball courts and on the restroom and on the new playground, there should be an additional acknowledgement that pickleball courts, funding,
Right.
funding provided.
And I understand, to Carol's point several months ago, about too much signage, they didn't want signs everywhere. But for some of these things, so for example, any of the open land purchases, that's a given. They can go on the kiosks or in the parking lot. For a lot of the recreation ones, there's fencing. So
Why
a
are you
nice,
picking on recreation?
because we fund a lot of
Because we
recreation
fund a lot of
stuff.
recreation projects,
So
you're right.
You have, but they are the only ones that
They
have.
are, I recognize that,
knowledge.
but we're talking
This-
about
this-
establishing a brand here. So I think
So,
that.
so stop trying to overrun me and listen for a
Okay.
second. The recreation department, they spent the time and they spent the money to acknowledge what we're trying to do. Now, I understand you want to focus on changing some things, but I'm looking at the entire town. The money that has been spent by the taxpayers through this committee, through town meeting, to provide the service, some of the services, some of the infrastructure, can't say that, some of the infrastructure in this town. So, let's take the library, Brooks Academy, all the conservation property, and start there with a sign. We have the verbiage. Let's just build a 2-foot by 6-foot, 2-foot by 6-foot sign, put the posts in the ground, and that's your acknowledgement. We don't ask for permission to do it, we just do it.
I'm not in the historic district,
No,
That's right.
I think the problem is maybe people are picturing like
Okay, so
cardboard signs.
what
as opposed
what
to
would be
think of
the
it
objection to the
conservation.
historic?
No objection, just is by.
We have a
matter of
permitting
legal, you have to
process
permit.
for signage and.
For signage?
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know that, okay, I just learned something.
The building commissioner would let you know.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Well,
There
good
there
point.
are, there are sign bylaws and stuff that we'll have to go in front of somebody, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move this forward. Let's settle on the sign.
I think there's gonna be a variety of sizes and stuff, but question.
Does that have to be, is that necessary? Can't there be a universal sign that we can place on all the including recreation properties?
No.
So I'm gonna say no,
Why?
I think you need different sizes based on where they are and where the
Because-
projects.
so-
A small 2x2 sign in the middle of the Brooks Academy Museum field, you're not gonna see.
I'm not
as you
saying-
drive by.
So I have a question,
Go ahead, you have the floor.
because I finally get to stand up and talk. We have 7 villages. Let's start, because there are so many projects, but there's so many things that you've done. Let's get this, so we're gonna try to brand, as David said earlier, we're trying to brand the town. Okay. Let's take a collection of, and if someone can get me the list in a spreadsheet or wherever, that we have the projects that have been done. over whatever the time frame is that we've.
Since '04, right.
Thank you.
'05.
Then we'll look at what they are. Hopefully, there's a few in each of the villages.
Oh, easily.
Then
You have a
let's
cemetery in East-
let's start there with a couple of the big ones, because again, to Mary's point and to Kathy's, there are different size buildings or whatever that are going to be visible. Let's get the brand going throughout the town and then keep adding to it. I also don't know how much money you have to spend on this.
So
We haven't
that
even talked about that.
was my next question. I'm assuming we can spend administrative funds on the signs.
I'm guessing we
I would
can.
think we can.
And I would say, then we're looking at taxpayer dollars. So to fabricate those signs, when we're talking multiples, we are looking at a procurement process. So I think we need to come up with
An RFP.
we need to come up with a design.
Isn't there like a threshold that if it's under a certain amount that we don't have to do that?
Individually,
Yeah, but you
not
can't split
collectively.
them.
Oh,
So if you're, so you're talking 50,000 is a bid. I think
But we,
25,000 is usually quotes.
They brought it up to 25.
So, so
It was
yes,
us.
we do have to go out and get quotes, so we need to come up with, what Cindy's gotta do is provide us, I think, with the sign, we need to decide whether we want it as like a vinyl sign, a carved sign, a wood, AZAC, painted, not painted, and come up with that, so that we can give it to somebody and ask for prices for different sizes of signs, I think, and then be able to go off of a list like that.
You just had a very important point. If we could use, if they can develop it in AZAC, that would be tremendous, because the minute you go into wood, we're talking maintenance over the period of time. So,
But
the AZAC gets moldy, you spray it with shock it, and that's, brings it right back to new. So,
And that would,
That's
what
a
would you
thought.
think
And so
about?
that's going to be something too that you'll put in the RFP. I mean, there's all the specifics that you're going to need in that. So it's,
But the question also is, what's the lettering gonna be? Is it gonna be vinyl lettering, Bob? Is it gonna be,
yeah,
I mean,
decide that
white
way.
with a black background or
Well, it's gonna be
That-
that color,
that color.
isn't it?
that design, right? With the
Yeah.
blue and the
White
orange.
with
And
Yeah.
That's gonna get expensive.
White with the orange and the blue.
That's gonna get expensive.
But you won't know until you won't know until you
Right.
quote
No,
it.
You have
that's-
to get the quotes.
It's obviously a
Getting
two-color sign
quotes.
minimum, right?
Are you sending a consulting bill to the,
I don't even know what, that's what we need to talk about. I mean, I don't even know, when you guys first had this conversation months ago, I wasn't involved in it. Now I am.
you stepped in it now?
I know, right? That's what I get for coming up to the mic and going, so what do you guys really want to do? I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, what you want to do, so. Yes, Kathy. Are you asking me to?
oh, I'm asking,
She's waiting for David to acknowledge her.
I'll just wait.
You get the floor.
No, maybe we're thinking too big, too broad right now. Maybe we should agree on a logo, agree on the verbiage, set ourselves a budget, like let's say $10,000, and see what we can get for $10,000, and then that's what this year's thing is, and we see how well received it is, we see how they hold up, we see if we get any feedback from the community, and then if we want to do another printing of $10,000 worth the following year, we could, or we couldn't. But I mean, let's not start with just jumping to
Brass black.
unless everybody wants to. It's-
Okay, so
It does come down
simple.
to how much money we have, right?
What's the
So-
pleasure of the board?
I like Kathy's suggestion. I mean, it's big enough to be meaningful, but
Yep.
it's not so
Get-
huge.
So I
or
think too, if we can go back, because if I continue to help on this, which I would love to, can we have a list of where these projects are? Because I don't know all of them. And
I have a list.
fabulous. And then let's start like that in each area, add a couple. And then, so then the people that are in East Harwich will see them. The people in West Harwich will see them. So then you will get more feedback on what this is. They're gonna see these popping up, and they're gonna be like, oh, then you've got that vibe going, and then we can continue to add to it.
What would you start with, cemeteries?
No, I wouldn't start with the cemeteries. I would start with like the walking trails, you know, the land purchases, and then pick something
Restrooms,
else.
fences,
That-
lights.
I hate to say it, I'm sorry, I think we're picking on you, but we're not. The rec facilities are important.
Right.
We've spent a lot of money on some of the rec facilities.
But they do have recognition right
They,
now.
they
so-
do have some,
Right, but
but
that's-
but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have at least one branding there
Right.
to tie it together.
And that would be the new project at the pickleball.
And then you've got,
That would be a great.
right, and then you've got, I think Brooks Academy Museum you can't pass up because it's too big, it's gonna be going on for too long.
Well, and
There's too much
especially
work.
too, and there was also the project, but there was also some challenges getting it all okayed too. So I think we need to definitely show the thank you of that.
That's a good thought.
So, I think that's a good idea. Just let's start getting the branding out there, start getting people.
So what really
used
needs to
it,
happen is
and then-
finalize the design with the verbiage.
Yep.
Right? Decide if you want 2 posts with caps? Do you want square caps? Do you want arched caps? Do you want,
Cannonballs.
seriously, I'm looking at Bob for input.
I'm trying to meet Bob's criteria.
So do we
It
ha-
would
do
be
we have-
You want,
cannonballs.
I mean, are
Do
you-
we have any signs already
are
in
into-
Harwich Center? Because Harwich Centers are historic. So is there already a sign that we can kind of mirror it towards to stay in that criteria? No.
Do you really want to go already into like wood posts in the ground with the thing? I mean, I think
That's what I'm asking.
what I'm sort of picturing now to start with, get the lay of the land, see the response, is something like the election signs.
I don't know what they look like.
You
So
know,
the
when you
ones
drive
that,
down
the ones that
Election
you can
sign
do
isn't
like,
gonna be permanent enough.
Right.
I'm
Oh, you're
not
talking about
saying
the steel,
permanent.
the
I'm not
steel.
saying
No, but I
permanent.
think if we're spending money, we should do, my own opinion,
Right.
if we're spending money on signage, it needs to be a more permanent sign than an election sign that would come
I
down
understand what
in
you, yeah, the
30
things you
days.
stick in the ground for whatever.
Right,
they do.
if you were just trying it at certain places, then
I mean, I think there are plenty of sign companies around, we should be able to reach out and get quotes once we have a design.
and I have some members that are, so
The
that's,
size.
yep.
You know, we have to reach out to enough to give us a smattering of
Okay, so
prices.
what are we doing? We got the verbiage.
Okay, so if I can get with Kathy, because Kathy seems to be the keeper of the list and the verbiage, if I can have that, I'm gonna go around and see where everybody is. I'm gonna try to get an idea, and then I'll email, or I can come back on the next, when is the next meeting first, before I commit myself to that?
May 11th.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have anything that night. I can come back then and say, okay, this is where I would suggest them. This is the sizes and the thoughts that we had. What do you think? And go from there. How's
A
that?
number on that. Not the 10,000, I understand that. Is there a number on the amount of signs we're gonna develop?
I think you need to find out what the prices
Yeah.
are first.
The list.
I mean, if we can
Let-
only get 2 signs, that's probably gonna be too much money for us.
Okay, fair enough. So
Yeah,
you've
so-
gotta prioritize what you're looking at then.
But I think
That's the
too,
case.
when you're asking for the quotes from the sign company, we can ask for options. We can ask for a 2x2x4 with AZAC and vinyl lettering. We can ask with caps or with
Are
you
you
know,
jotting this down?
lighted
No,
caps.
but I'm listening because I think we're,
But that's what I'm saying, like, we can ask for larger sizes and smaller sizes and single post or double post and have them quote us a price for those things. And then we have a price list that we can then make decisions as to how many we think we can fit in a budget and whether we can get 8 or 10 out of a $10,000 or $15,000 budget for this year.
so what if, since I've been working on it, if I research with members instead of doing the whole RFP thing yet, it's more of a find facting.
Well, we still need to get,
Right.
the town would still need to officially get quotes.
Exactly, but if
not
I,
there yet
But,
at all.
but you don't necessarily want, because people that help you design the quote really don't respond to the quote, so you kind of don't want to taint anybody either,
All right.
so.
If
I'm
they
just
wanna
trying to
be-
get
if
some
they
more
wanna be
information
participants.
for it, so you guys can make a really qualified, educated decision here. I mean, we're like we're like a little bouncy ball, jumping all over the place.
Listen, I know a house sign from Chatham Sign Company is about $450.
Well, I don't think we would be doing that.
So I'm saying signs in general are just expensive, we know that.
Right,
So
but
it's
you're
just
not
gonna
even
be
there
what-
yet.
Right, it's just gonna be what,
Kathy and Cindy need to
Right.
talk, decide on a design. Then you can worry
Right.
about what you want it to do, but
Exactly.
don't jump the gun yet.
Okay, is that okay with the board?
I make a motion, no.
Don't need a motion. Nope. You're all set,
go for it,
if you're willing to.
have fun.
No, I mean, we may decide just a metal placard,
Yeah, could be,
you know,
right.
is suitable
better.
for our purposes right now. And then we can expand on that next year.
I don't disagree with you.
So, you know, that might be the most economical way to go, but that would also dictate where we put them, because we're not gonna put a metal placard on the Brooks Academy Museum.
Right.
Okay, so, you know, gotta feel our way around it.
I think there's a happy medium between
Yeah.
a carved wood sign and a.
I think it's a very good suggestion that whatever you do consider, one of the considerations is the museum. So,
That's taking a big chunk of money. People should see it, right, know
The
it.
museum is gonna be two different cycles. Right now, you want a big colorful sign at the museum letting people know that CPC helped pay for that project.
but that also could,
Eventually, when it's all complete, you're gonna want something pretty and tasteful because it will be a historic building. And then you're not gonna wanna hang a big banner across the road saying, look what we did.
but you know something, that would be perfect to take from Brooks Academy Museum with a large, whatever we're gonna do, and bring it over and put it at the pickleball court.
Right,
No, you
exactly.
should have the
With a different name.
Thing, exactly. So, but you can't decide any of that until you pick the design. So
Okay?
do that.
Okay.
And then you can worry about.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love how we just booked Kathy and
Yeah, well,
Cindy into
I-
multiple appointments.
I've got Cindy's card right here, okay, Cindy?
okay, moving on. Old business, CPC sign, we've covered that. Next scheduled meeting, May 11th, 2023. Anybody want anything on the next? John?
We will need to talk about the online application for the next funding cycle.
Okay. Anything else?
Me, as the chair of the housing authority, so you're not getting rid of me that quickly. I'm sort of leaving, but not leaving.
Who's gonna report on the,
On the
On
rental.
that housing authority.
$300.
All of
Rental
it,
program.
once we're not,
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
so, yes.
and maybe something from Tracy.
What else? Anything from the
Maybe
board?
we'll have Kelly's follow-up on the
Update,
Facebook.
yep.
Social media update.
All right, so I understand you're leaving us.
I am.
I want to thank you for your service. We may have had some disagreements, but it doesn't matter. We're all volunteers here, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of hours and a lot of aggravation to do what we do. And people will never understand that unless you sit on one of these boards.
And I may be back in the future. I do love what this committee does and still need a housing committee member. So who knows? I may be back sooner than you think, but it's just for now. I need to step down for now, but thank
Okay.
you all. It's been a joy working with you.
I don't know if you can say that, but
No, it is. I always learn something, and I think you're all incredibly smart, interesting people who care about this town deeply. Can't knock that.
No, you can't. That's absolutely true. And that's another thing about this board. I am lucky to be the chair of this board. I truly am, because I know the time and the effort that if you get into this and I make a request to you, there's a lot of information that comes to us. There's a lot of work that's done in the background. And I'm gonna say it, I frankly think this is the best board in this town, but I'm biased. So, I've said enough. I appreciate all of you for all the effort you put in. I truly do.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
and I appreciate Cindy for the effort she's volunteered herself for. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Have a good night, folks.